Well, good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and to all of us across the world. Welcome back to Talking Points after a 4-day break following the Christmas holiday. Well, that's more or less over for now, and we will continue the conversation this morning as we count down to the end of 2022 and the opening of a new chapter with 2023 just right around the corner. Well, as you know, Christmas season always, well, when that ends, it leads into the carnival season. So that is alive and kicking. There's quite a bit to talk about following the weekend. Yes, there was the usual car accidents, the usual murders. And it's not that I'm trying to sound heartless or senseless, but can I really tell you that I did not expect those to not happen? Well, I would be an idiot or a fool if I were to suggest otherwise. Anyway, as we get into the conversation this morning, let me introduce my co-host and colleague. He's alongside me in the sense that I can see him in the little window. He has a much better view and a much better background than I do. So he should be smiling. Sean Michael Small, good morning. Good to see you.
I am smiling, Keaton. I'm smiling on the inside, you see, where my soul is smiling. Whereas I'm normal. I'm normal. It's sobering with regards to, you're checking out the news to see what's the latest things just before the show, because there's always going to be news coming out at around 8 o'clock that you want to keep your eye on. There are probably going to be major stories that wouldn't be out at 4 in the afternoon or early in the day previous. One of the situations, however, that I knew beforehand was one of the road fatalities because he was coming by us. He was coming to Sandy Point to stay. He was a regular customer there, or at least I believe he was. Yes, that's how we found out about his untimely passing. This is actually the second time it happened, a road fatality for this Christmas season, which it does put a bit, I don't want to say damp on things, because it's not as though we lost a family member. So I don't want to take away the grief of the actual family members who had to deal with this tragedy. But to some extent, it does seep in a little bit into our psyche, and it's unfortunate. It's just another reminder, folks. It's really not worth it. Better to come a little late than to risk what we saw there, because it's a hell of a thing. Now, we've spoken with regards to the murder victims and what those families had to go through just before Christmas, and now we have this situation whereas you're more or less in the holiday season. Christmas is over, yes, but New Year's is coming up. And what does that mean now for these families that are left in this sense of tragedy? And I guess this is one of the things that ASPLU was concerned about with regards to, well, we hopefully will have him later this week. That's with regards to drinking and driving. In this case, no alcohol, I believe, was involved. It was rushing, and that's the result. We're too small of a country for you to need to rush that much. I could understand rushing, but speeding, you could limit your speeding and still get to your destination quickly, as odd as that might seem.
Well, it's unfortunate news indeed. The passing of anybody through a road traffic accident. I think I learned it a pastor who passed away after being knocked over by an 18-year-old driver. I think it was either Davy or Claxonby. And then there was another RT on Christmas Day itself, a four-car smash-up just outside Heartland Plaza in Chabonas. And then there was this accident that happened yesterday. And you're right, we're too small of a country in terms of, for speeding. I think what it is sometimes with respect to time, or sometimes with respect to the level of the traffic. Because I actually got stuck in traffic trying to get to my destination yesterday, which was along that route. And I had to turn off by the St. Augustine Girls High School. The traffic was so bad. It was really sad and unfortunate to see the condition, the state of the car, because from what I understand, he lost control of the vehicle, crashed into a light pole, but there were bits of the car all over the road.
Yes.
So it's sad. It is really sad. And as I said, it's not that I'm trying to sound as though I'm becoming desensitized to the situation, and I'm not saying that we still shouldn't bring awareness to the dangers of speeding and DUIs and so on and so forth. But I think what it is that every Christmas weekend we expect things of this magnitude to happen, as unfortunate and as heartbreaking as it is, because Christmas Day itself, um, my parents were telling me, don't drive home too late, because it's not safe out on the highways late at night. There are people who, no matter what, they will be under the influence of alcohol, heavily intoxicated, and will still be driving. And many times it's innocent people who succumb to these fatal accidents. It's really the innocent ones. But um, as I conclude, what more can I say? I just wish all the family members the very best, and may he rest in peace.
Well, just a segue, another concern, of course, of ASPLEs was how altercation leads to violence. One of the cases, I guess, I don't believe it was on murder. I believe it was an attempted murder because the victim was assaulted and chopped. I'm not entirely sure to what extent the injuries the article doesn't say, or at least this one doesn't say. Um, According to the article, it doesn't give any extraordinary circumstances as to why the situation escalated so badly. But even now, in a holiday period where everybody is supposed to be celebrating and in a happy mood, and one could even argue have a sense of community and maybe even forgiveness. Well, a personal matter, what seems to be a personal matter between two teenagers or teenaged women, 17, so one could argue they're close to adulthood. But the point is it escalated, and now four individuals are being charged with attempted murder. Thankfully, it's not murder. I do wonder to what extent we're seeing behavioral patterns slowly, of course, be different than the norm. Yes, there's COVID and the cost of living has gone up and inflation and all of that. But now, to what extent are we really seeing societal norms start to shift, and how permanent is it going to be? I think might be one of the questions we need to start asking ourselves, because can we bear the change? I think one of the interesting things is a lot of the leading figures, not just politicians, but perhaps to some extent some businessmen, some community leaders, definitely the union leaders, they're all acting as though this is Trinidad 3 years ago. And I do wonder if, well, no, we need to really start to look now, and it would be nice if we had the ability to get a proper census of the country and look at the proper changes in demographics and crime statistics and have that macro level analysis to see, okay, are we actually seeing our society change? Is this change detrimental? And what could we potentially do about it? Because I know it's not new for that an argument leads to chopping with a cutlass, right? It's not as though this is the first time, but I do feel, I just personally have a sense that mentality of people might have shifted a bit. It might be subtle now, but it might look very large and have further reaching consequences in a few years from now. And I don't know if we want to wait to see what that looks like.
Well, what we're seeing now is the failure and the mistakes of years gone by when it came to, I suppose, the breakdown within the social structures in society, even within the family setting. And I say that because if we were to just use this one story as an example, imagine a 17-year-old girl is being charged alongside her relatives, two of her relatives for attempted murder. And this is the thing. You would think that these relatives, considering their age and their, I suppose, experience and life within society in Toronto would be more sensible than this. But whilst we don't know the entire story, it's reported that two female relatives got into an argument. and then another male relative came with a cutlass and essentially chopped one of the relatives about her body. The 17-year-old was charged alongside a male relative who's 66 years old. 66 years old, like,
Yes.
doing this in a very respectful manner, but Gramps, you should be enjoying your retirement if that's the case,
And and
guiding.
the victim was a family member as well, right?
Exactly. Yes, they were family members. And this is the thing. I say, Gramps, you should be enjoying your retirement because 66 years old, okay, from 40 years old, from 50 years old, but at 66 years old, you're now charged really with bringing up that 17-year-old into society. You have a certain responsibility. I assume that your parents would have guided you. And I would have hoped that you would have also tried to be a positive influence and a guide to that 17-year-old, bringing her up into society, especially knowing now in Toronto that things are the way, look at how we're living. You're fearful to even go put out your garbage at night because you just don't know what can happen. So this is what I mean by oftentimes, we have a role to play as well, as it relates to the crime situation. It's very unfortunate, Sansan, that we have to read a story in which a 17-year-old girl was charged with attempted murder.
Mm-hmm.
As much as families have their disputes, as much as families have their argument, I still wonder up until this point, what can lead, especially within families, which often they say have the worst arguments, with land disputes, for example. Well, what could really lead them to kill somebody who's their own blood? I suppose blood doesn't equal to love. Just to kill a human being alone, what really can lead them to that level of anger? That I don't know, and I don't ever want to experience it.
The real question is, could it get worse? Because it wasn't clear to me in the first article that she was a family member. And it, sometimes these details are incorrect in the initial reports because it's not necessarily always easy to get the most accurate information. But we'll go with what one of the other articles is saying, that it is a family member who essentially was assaulted by the rest of her family because she had an argument with a minor. Now, just because you're a minor doesn't mean that the subject matter is going to be PG, it's going to be some minor thing. It could be a serious argument. It could be a serious disagreement. The victim could even technically be wrong in the argument. Of course, I very much doubt that any argument is going to be worthy of this type of response. So now the question is this, like I said, a breakdown or a sign of a breakdown in society? We already saw it with the criminal element, where violence is escalating. And we know that we've had an issue with domestic violence due to the pandemic and being locked. But for the last year or so, we haven't been under lockdown. So we don't necessarily have that as a direct reason in this case. We've had about a year of being open up, and they more or less survived all that time between the 2 years of back and forth with lockdown and then now during the recovery. But as consumer patterns change because of COVID, and now cost of living is going up, so it's going to change consumer patterns again. This is something that I think this is a symptom of a problem that even businessmen need to look out for. Even the government needs to look out for, not just for violence and escalation of conflict into violence, but also spending patterns, how customers respond, how voters respond, how society responds to different stimuli. And on one hand, on that aspect, it might open up new opportunities, but it might also close other things. And for you, the average citizen, what that means is there might be a period of further turmoil where, ironically speaking, not only would it make life, somewhat a little bit more difficult, but it would then compound this problem that we see in the violent side, where more people might be frustrated and then willing to use violence. So again, I'm not necessarily going to be one to say, well, we just have to do some quick fix, like say we need religion in schools, or we need to have the police, morality police, or something like that. It's a bit more complex than that. We still need to identify if there's a problem, what it might be, and then if there will probably be, if there is one, a whole host of factors that contributed that we have to figure out, can we even fix? Because some of this pressure being external, with the price of food, a good chunk of it being external, it's difficult for us to fix. It's one of the things that you do have to be fair with the government for, and not necessarily expect them to be able to compensate for everything when it's not all coming from within us, it's coming from outside as well.
I, I I agree with you to the extent that you can't blame the government for every single thing. And the situation, in my opinion, is only going to get worse. I think one of the key solutions is the household and the family. But really, does that truly exist? Socioeconomic and the standard of living, those conditions can actually affect a household and a family. So all that is a part to play with it. The reason why I would say that you don't blame government to an extent is because at the end of the day, regardless of what the government says or does, you still have the opportunity to do better, and you still have the opportunity to even think better and act better. On the flip side, when you see government members within the walls of parliament actually going at each other's juggling, the manner in which they do it does not set a good example at all. I've heard things from the opposition leader, I've heard things from the Prime Minister, which I'm not very proud of, and I should never hear coming from leaders to that level, to that degree at all. And it really, I don't think they understand the effect that it could have, especially in people who look up to them. So, this is why it sometimes goes hand in hand. Yes, outside of Trans-Tobago, the world is falling apart. There are certain things that still bring us together, such as sporting events. But look at Christmas in Ukraine, for example. And that was just one example of how the world is changing, how the world is falling apart. Every time I hear Russia reporting on Ukraine and suggesting that Ukraine attacked and killed 3 of our soldiers, I'm just thinking, the hypocrisy and the irony of it all. Russia could also say that there seems to be no wanting of peace from the United States or from Ukraine, when Russia is saying that there'll only be peace when Ukraine agrees to our terms. Outside of that, look at the tragedy that happened over the weekend. With respect to Mother Nature is just fighting back. Over 55 people passed away in the United States because of this snowstorm, this storm of generations to come. Within the United Kingdom, it's the same thing. And if you realize, I'm speaking about first world nations here. We're a third world nation. So imagine if these are affecting first world nations. In England, farmers have warned that a food crisis is looming. If a food crisis is looming in England, in which farming is one of the biggest sectors, could you imagine the impact it's going to have in Trinidad, which is already happening? The price of pumpkin a couple of days ago was $40 a pound. It came down to $25 a pound. A bundle of side was $13. So and this is the thing. It's the most limp, skinny side I've ever seen. You're only getting about 3 stalks on this bunch of side. Yeah. So all of these things, you're absolutely right. It has an impact. It's affecting Trinidad and Tobago. And this is why when I hear government ministers and those in authority speak and say, people do not see the work that we're doing. I think 2 ministers said that. I think Colm Imbert and Fitzgerald Hines said they do not see the work that we're doing. But I could assure you that on a regular basis, every single day, we're behind our desks, we're getting the work done, and we're working very hard to ensure that we're doing absolutely everything possible to give the best life to Trinis. And, that statement may be fair. They may be doing that. But, Sean, I think we all know it's not the quantity of work, it's the quality of work. And clearly you could be signing 10,000 papers a day. Clearly you could be holding 5 meetings a day. You could be doing whatever it is that is leading to that statement. The quantity of work may be there. You may have that quantity, but you don't have the quality of work. Because if you have that quality of work, I don't need to know that this roadway is costing me $12 million. I don't need to know that this roadway is costing me $48 million. In the context that, because financial transparency is important, but I need it in the context that I don't want to know that it's costing me $12 million now, but in a year's time, when the rains return, that it's washed away. That is washed away. So all of these things you need to understand that they're having an impact. And I firmly believe that whilst Tobago was once touted as one of the wealthier nations in the Western Hemisphere because of our oil and natural gas reserves, and whilst we could be living a far better life in terms of the quality of services, the quality of infrastructure, and just the standard of living right now, whilst we could actually be experiencing that, it's going to be extremely difficult to improve upon. It's going to take quite some time to improve upon. It's going to take a new government or a new way of thinking, more than just one term, to actually make a meaningful impact and change. And this is where people are going to have to try and be patient about it. But at the end of it all, if we get quality, things could be better. It's going to take some time, but it could get better.
Well, just before the break, I also want to I forgot there was there was a murder due to a domestic dispute. That was Mr. Nkosi Wells. I apologize. I probably got his first name pronounced wrong. But the point is, he was killed on the night, Christmas night, basically due to a domestic incident escalating. Details with regards to who is at fault and all of that are not necessarily concrete. That's not necessarily the point. The point is, again, it's a domestic situation that led to a man's death. And I think you're right, Keaton. I wasn't necessarily even thinking about climate change and the war in Ukraine when I was talking earlier with regards to, we might have a problem. But I think you're right in that we also do have to realize those things are affecting us heavily. And again, to what extent are we prepared for things to go bad? Because we are seeing bad weather here, and we're questioning the outcome, the consequences being bad. And yes, maybe it could be because urbanization. But again, it actually makes it worse if the reason why the consequences are so bad is because of urbanization, because that just says, oh, it's our fault. It's completely our fault. Mother Nature is not as to blame as you would like to think. We could have prevented it. We're not preventing it. What else are we not preventing? But let's take a break. When we come back, you mentioned Colin Bate. There's an interesting back and forth there with regards to his latest communication with the public that I want to get your opinion on, and I'll give mine first when we return on WSN, your content capital.
Better Value Limited has been making gift giving easier and more affordable for over 26 years. Power tools, indoor, outdoor furniture and accessories, mini appliances, designer fragrances, houseware and home decor products, and all your bridal registry items. Now in stock, our stylish loft bed and study desk combo unit for just $16.50. Better Value Limited. Call 235-3709 or visit us at Princestown or Gulview, or check our Facebook page.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Your Christmas is safe with us at BCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at BCU. Police Credit Union. BCU Police Credit Union.
Get an easy 0-inch interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
Your home a work of art. Step into a spacious place of creative ideas for your home space. Our floor and wall tiles and natural stone is ideal for any use you need in your home. Toilet, bathroom sets and vanities lend design to your creativity, while jacuzzis and shower enclosures create the mood for dwelling on life's pleasures. Lamps and lighting fixtures add ambience and memorable pictures. Horse-eye lights, tiles and bath, making your home a work of art. Olsen's Industrial Complex, Union Road, Marabella.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, it's beautiful here in the sister Isle of Tobago. A nice, beautiful morning. I'm smiling on the inside and on the outside right now. Shaw Michael Small alongside my co-host, Mr. Keaton Shaw, who is unfortunately not enjoying the same sunshine as I am. Keaton, please don't be jealous now. But I did say that I wanted to speak about Minister Imbert, and he had a message, I believe it was over Twitter, reported from Twitter, where he promised that the following year things will get better. Paraphrasing, of course. And MP David Lee took him to task, saying, well, this is political trickery. However, I actually find it very interesting because a lot of what MP David Lee said, I felt was more or less pot calling the kettle black for the most part. Yes, there were some things that he was correct on, but really and truly, Minister Imbert's message, I don't think was anything that extraordinary, really. Oh, he's promising it to be a better year, and he's going to say that the government will distribute as much of the national wealth as possible. And MP Lee is saying, well, why you didn't do that now with the budget surplus that you have, etc., etc., etc. The reason why I think MP Lee is incorrect, and I have issues with Minister Imbert as well, I think MP Lee is criticizing the wrong thing. He's going in the wrong direction. First of all, okay, you pointed out the budget surplus. Dig into that further, because I believe that, yes, we might have had an accounting budget surplus. I don't actually think the government had a budget surplus to say that they had $1 billion extra cash that they could have made use of. Or at least it's very interesting when they report to the public that they have a budget surplus and they have bills and debts outstanding, including to TNTT, one of their own entities, for their own power consumption that they have to pay off. So where is the line, the argument going down that road for the UNC? I haven't seen it. The other thing is this, and MP Lee wants, essentially, he doesn't have an issue with how Minister Imbert is saying that the money will be spent. I do. Because I understand in times like this, you do want to have some safety nets for people. But the problem is, to some extent, there will always be a need for safety nets. It is never the right time to wean people off of the freeness. But we need to start at some point. Now, as I said, Maybe not now, but last year we had the same argument. Will it extend till next year? To what extent is the freeness not really helping people? Because the politicians want to say, well, the people need help, let's give away money to help them because cost of living is too high. What about long-term initiatives to try to keep the cost of living controlled? What about that? That to me would be more stable than just giving away money and thinking that will solve the problem, because it keeps getting worse. It keeps extending with one crisis after another. And all we need now is some major snowstorm in the wrong part of the world to cause a shortage or something else. And cost of living will go up even further, or at the very least be extended. And there is always the risk of conflict again happening. And if China gets into a conflict, ladies and gentlemen, that's one of the major manufacturing areas of the world. A lot of our products that the West consumes will be from China. Again, cost of living will go up. So I'm seeing more or less the same kind of political back and forth. There's nothing new here. Again, I don't necessarily like the concept that either the minister or the MP Keaton is coming with. Why are we looking again to just give out more grants, give out more buffer? It's short-term spending, no long-term gain. And the sad part is the nature of the inflation that we're hitting with here is that you give people more money, it just potentially drives the inflation further. And the net benefit will be closer to zero than we possibly could think.
I don't agree with either MP, Dr. David Lee, nor the Minister of Finance, in the sense that I'm of the opinion that philanthropy is not the way. With the government being the biggest employer within Trinidad and Tobago, I think since 2013, Reginald Dumas warned that this is going to backfire big time. It's already started in the sense that individuals within the public service are only receiving 3-month contracts, and that's almost across the board. That's you're only getting a contract for 3 months. So you get to survive for another 3 months, and at the end of that, you don't know what's going to happen next. But I say philanthropy is not the way, because this expenditure by the government in relation to grants and social services is what creates a dependency upon them. And that dependency upon them also, to a certain extent, of which I've witnessed. I've witnessed it. And because I've witnessed it, I'm 100% sure that it creates a sense of laziness and idle hands in TNT, those who could be contributing to the workforce. There's an individual, they refer to him as Giant. He is a very big, very broad individual, very tall. I've seen him at Kirk Junction. I've seen him in Woodbrook. I've seen him in Punapuna. I've seen him all over, actually. And this is an individual who unfortunately lost his big toe to some accident. And he's begging, saying the toe is sick, and he's begging people for money. And the thing is that this individual is more than able to still work. This individual is more than able to contribute. I don't know why or what, but at the beginning of every month, you see him standing up outside the bank to collect his checks for social services. These are the little things that need to change, and these are the little things that need to be worked on. Sean?
No, it's just, think about it. In TNT, it is more socially acceptable, or at least it is less embarrassing for some people to beg than to work in a place like, in a fast food restaurant or some sort of retail job in some clothing store or something like that. Like, think about it. There are certain jobs where they just cannot get enough workers. And you know what? My dignity is too good for that, but I'll beg. I'll beg on the side of the road. Think about it.
But also the other issue that I had with Minister Coleman with some Christmas message, his 45-second message on Twitter, is that you're speaking a lot about our budget surplus. And if I take a look at the article right here, you said, earlier this month, it was announced the country had, for the first time in 14 years, achieved a fiscal surplus, the first since 2007, 2008. He said total revenue in the fiscal year 2022 was 54.21 billion, or 10.88 billion more than originally estimated. Total expenditure was 53.12 billion, or 690 million more than originally estimated. So, the issue that I'm also having is that you're not adding context to it. Because for example, our debt to GDP ratio has been 80% plus in the last 3 years. And I think the World Bank has indicated that, so essentially we've been close to default for the last 3 years. I think the World Bank issued a study in which it stated that if your debt to GDP ratio is 77% and above, then you are, it has severely harsh, like really negative impacts upon the economy. So the Minister of Finance didn't express that because I suppose he didn't have enough time to express that in his message, but he doesn't often speak about these things. So the debt to GDP ratio is one thing to look at and one thing to consider, which is why I'm thinking that you're not actually out there helping people learn how they can make up money, or teaching them in terms of the ways of an income or a way to live. You're actually just giving them the bread. No. They need to learn how to make the bread on themselves. You're not doing that. So that's one way I'm suggesting that you're not focusing on the reality of the situation. Secondly, when you take a look at our relationship with China, our debt with China since 2019, if I'm not mistaken, has gone up by at least $4 billion US. I think it was something like 2.2 billion US, our debt with China in 2019, and it was over 6 billion. Take a look at the proposed La Brea dry dock facility, which is $3 billion it's going to cost. Take a look at Phoenix Park, another 1 billion. Take a look at the Tobago Airport, which is how much billions? 1 point something billion dollars, $1.8 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So all of those things, we're more in debt. We're sinking in debt. We more or less sold ourselves out to China. We do not have control of one of our best resources right now, which is the pitch lake. We haven't had that for quite some time, actually. But at the end of it all, you saying that 2023 is going to be better than 2022 is not only in my mind an admittance of the government's feeling to actually help the population, but also showing me that you have absolutely no clue what you're suggesting or what you're stating. It's just a positive Christmas Day message for a nation, really, that right now is facing turmoil.
Well, that situation with debt to GDP ratio, Keaton, I think in theory we could do it at 80%. I believe is where a country like ours should be able to manage. But that, I believe, is all things being equal before COVID, or not during the recovery period of COVID. So it will be after we've recovered. I don't think it said, oh, we could do it during COVID, during high inflation, food inflation, etc., during a container shipping crisis that caused trade to go up by the amount that it did for a time. It seems to be a bit more stable now. Hopefully that will be a mitigating factor moving forward. But in theory, you could do it. But I think this whole, again, it's similar, as you said, Rachel Dumas warned about the job situation. I'm sure there were people warning, listen, I don't know if this whole debt to GDP thing at 80%, 90%, 100% in some cases. I think the US is above 100%. I think Japan is, last time, if my memory is correct, might be as much as 200%. These things are only sustainable if you're growing. And COVID and then the cost of food and going up caused growth to more or less, yes, there's still some growth, but it's not just that the percentages are smaller. But, in some cases, we shrunk. So we're nowhere near 1% of a smaller pie is going to be, a slower rate than 1% of a bigger pie. So we saw this in China. We saw this in China where their construction industry basically was relying on growth to keep pace, to outpace their debt. And then the government said, whoa, this is not going to work. And we need to put an end to this now before it gets even worse. And more or less they had a real estate bubble that burst and the economy now has a bit of a hole in it. To what extent, again, are we going to see these things play out negatively against us because we can't borrow our way into more debt if other economies, and with the weather crisis now in the Northern Hemisphere, where a lot of the money is, if that continues, again, how much money? The US and the UK are sending money to Ukraine for this war. Budgets will have a limit. You could print money all you want, you just drive inflation further. The U.S. Central Bank could do that, but it drives inflation.
So, solution. Venezuela tried to do that, and I mean
exactly. So we can't expect help. There's going to be a day when the U.S., China, and the U.K. and the rest of Europe is not necessarily going to have any more to help the Caribbean or to help other parts of the world because they've overextended themselves at the rate things are going.
Just before we go to the break, if it is that we are suggesting that COVID-19 really delayed any sense of recovery at all, or any recovery that existed prior to the pandemic, then I respect your points and I agree. However, I respectfully will disagree if we're suggesting that COVID-19 is the reason for the conditions on this day that we're in right now. Because I think what it did, in my opinion at least, is that COVID-19 exacerbated pre-existing conditions prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is the thing. My argument would simply be to ask one question. What recovery or what improvements were you seeing prior to 2020? And this is why I'm making the argument that, respectfully, I disagree in the sense that it only exacerbated pre-existing conditions, which in turn would have probably, shortened our recovery pace, if that recovery existed at all. And I don't think it existed. So I wouldn't make that as an excuse or a justification.
No, well, right. So I think the key is, I agree with you. I think it exposed weaknesses. I think the debt to GDP ratio might be a thing that is not totally exposed now. We're seeing where it's exposed in varying degrees abroad. I don't necessarily think it's totally exposed yet. I think the key is we would have been able to keep going how we were going. Similar with regards to our levels of corruption. If we had all the oil money, we could have kept that going. Well, the way how things were, we could have probably kept some of the excess going. COVID just said, well, no. The ability for us to afford this excess now is going to end a lot sooner rather than later. The question is, to what extent or how long could we have kept going the way we were before COVID if everything in the last 3 years did not happen? It could have been that we could have sustained it for quite some time. Maybe it would have been even worse if that happened because the situation would have been able to fester longer and become more ingrained, etc., and impact even more of the population in a more severe way. So it's hard to know, but I think generally speaking, you're right. We could maybe be debating semantics here, but we playing with fire, taking risks, and unfortunately, to jump analogies, the dice roll did not end up in our favor, and this is the result.
I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break here on Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry, it's in. We just have some time before 9 o'clock, and following which we will open up the phone lines where you, the viewer, can share your opinions and express with us your views as to the latest happenings here in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll be right back after this.
Step into a spacious place of creative ideas for your home space. Our floor and wall tiles and natural stone is ideal for any use you need in your home. Toilet, bathroom sets and vanities lend design to your creativity, while jacuzzis and shower enclosures create the mood for dwelling on life's pleasures. Lamps and lighting fixtures add ambience and memorable pictures.
Wholesale nights, hands and bath, making your home a work of art.
Olsen's Industrial Complex, Union Road, Marabella.
Better Value Limited has been making gift giving easier and more affordable for over 26 years. Power tools, indoor, outdoor furniture and accessories, mini appliances, designer fragrances, houseware and home decor products, and all your bridal registry items. Now in stock, our stylish loft bed and study desk combo unit for just $16.50. Better Value Limited. Call 235-3709 or visit us at Princestown or Gulview, or check our Facebook page.
Your Christmas is safe with us at BCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at BCU. Police Credit Union. BCU Police Credit Union.
Get an easy zero-interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Is it politics? What is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talking Points. The Christmas period is more or less over. I mean, at least for me, once Christmas Day concludes, that's it. I look forward to Ole's night into New Year's. But I think from next week, Monday, even from as early as yesterday, actually, we saw artists releasing new soca songs. But the carnival period makes its way, and carnival season kicks in. Now, the news coming from the National Carnival Commission, their chairman, Winston Gypsy Peters, is that they have a budget. They've received a budget of 147 million TT dollars. They requested 200 million and are about 53 million short, but he said, never mind, they're going to make this work. It's still being touted as the mother of all carnivals, but he has justified the $147 million expenditure, saying that carnival is an investment and brings short-term as well as long-term returns to those within the private sector. It's not the first time that we're going to debate whether or not this level of expenditure in these times are really something that is an investment. I mean, the Taste of Carnival earlier this year, I still have my opinion that it was a complete waste of time. But 147 million for Carnival next year, the mother of all carnivals. Don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Carnival, but I enjoy Carnival. I'll be jumping up in the streets. I'll be jumping up and singing to the soca songs, even when I'm in the shower, and I'm not embarrassed to admit it. The thing is, for me, whether or not it's truly an investment, what are the returns to government spending 147 million? though it will attract foreign exchange to a certain extent, the government themselves, I don't know if the government can ever speak as to when it is they themselves have had a return on their investment, their expenditure. My second question is, if Carnival is such a good investment, why don't we see more of the private sector participating in it? Shawn Michaels Small, 53 million less than what was originally requested by the NCC to the government. Are they going to make it work?
Well, here's the thing. He's not wrong with the statement. The statement is that Carnival is, profitable. Fine, I'll accept that. That is more or less the philosophy that I had, at least for Tobago's Carnival. It's not about the money that the THA earns back from events. It's about the fact that, well, look, you will stimulate the economy. You will facilitate an industry to exist that will potentially allow money to move, that will give certain businesses an influx of customers, because you have an event now that's going to encourage participation, that's going to encourage travel to Tobago, etc., etc. And you're going to get benefits like that with regards to Trinidad Carnival, right? We acknowledge that. You have a carnival. The irony, however, is how much of it is just having a carnival that's going to benefit you? Because the private sector does invest in carnival, but they invest, of course, in private events, in carnival bands, to put on the greatest street party in the world, I believe, is what we are touted as. We're not necessarily touted as the greatest carnival. But to what extent is the NCC's expenditure? Because Tobago Carnival was 17 million. And of course, we got short-sighted, Watson. You complain about 17 million. Here we have 143 million. To what extent is that to put on, the NCC's putting on events? To what extent is that being spent on infrastructure? So yes, I understand, you want to have booths, how much are the booths? Do you charge rent for your booths? I know that there's also permission for people to get spots on your road, up and down different areas in Port of Spain, and I assume similar to the rest of Trinidad, where mass is allowed. There's going to be a lot of economic activity. To what extent is the $143 million directly spent to facilitate that economic activity? And to what extent is it going to be spent on events that are not profitable? Because I get it. Yes, Carnival in and of itself is profitable to the country. But how much of the money that you're going to spend actually helps achieve that? And how much goes into something else that is tangential to what we actually achieve, that is not necessary, that we could probably do without if we did a proper analysis of the situation? But again, we are not necessarily offered any data. So ironically, where is MP David Lee to say this is political trickery or smoke and mirrors, because a lack of details could be used to hide things? Mr. Peters is not lying. What he said was factually correct, but it is devoid of enough critical information and context for us to then say, yes, this 143 million is money well spent. Because ironically, again, and I do believe, I played the video, pointed out, where is the inflation coming from? It's not because it's demand side inflation, it's supply side. They're just not producing enough. So to some degree, economic stimulus is not necessarily going to be all that useful potentially. Now, if it was economic stimulus to say, okay, and we're growing the economy in the long run, because once Carnival is over, that's it. And then we wait till next year. There'll be more fets, whatever. But these are all luxurious things. These are entertainment. This is not necessarily causing our GDP to grow exponentially, like, say, a new industry on the island would allow our GDP to grow exponentially. Or a new industrial park, a new development. There's new retail outlets because there's a new development in East Trinidad, Southeast Trinidad, South Trinidad, whatever. Those things will not just grow the economy today, but it'll grow it tomorrow. Carnival is a now-for-now thing. That is, again, a luxury. Where's our agricultural growth, etc., etc.? So we're going to get more people moving in an economy that has an issue with supply that's causing inflation. And then we're not necessarily doing enough to grow the economy in sustainable ways that we need. So these are questions that I would like to get answered from Mr. Peters, because I think the mother of all carnival aspect of it, Keaton, would have come whether the NCC spent 100 million, 200 million, 50 million. Because I think really and truly, the product that we see that works is basically the bands and the fets that have nothing to do with the NCC. Unless there's some grants for carnival bands that cost $10,000 a costume that I'm not aware of. So,
as I said, I look forward to Carnival as well. Don't get me wrong, we're always looking forward to a jump up and just letting loose. It's been a really 2 years since Trinidad Indians got to have a true Carnival. Don't get me wrong, as soon as we opened up, there were fets. As soon as we opened up, there were fets. But, you know, I think we'll continue this conversation because Carnival is we're now in the Carnival season, we're now in the Carnival period. So certainly this is going to be a continued conversation. I do have questions for Mr. Gypsy Peters, and I certainly look forward to welcoming him on Talking Points. He's not it's always quite an interesting interview with Mr. Gypsy Peters, given his personality. Whether or not you can you may get him booked and confirmed for the interview, but there's always some issue on the morning of the interview itself. Nevertheless, I still look forward to make that call, make that contact, and see if we can have that conversation with him and see if he can answer those questions. But my question remains: when has Carnival been profitable? You know, when has there been returns on Carnival expenditure or the investments, at least by the government? But John, on the flip side, have you seen the price of some of these costumes or costume packages? It's ridiculous. Some of these packages have been quoted in US because it's a smaller number in US, but by the time you do your calculations and convert it to TT dollars, I'm really, really, really good. I'm never will be caught spending that kind of money on a costume. And the thing is, you're going to have people, as is with, I suppose it's part of who we are and how we live now. You're going to have people going to do absolutely everything in their power to make sure and be on the road Carnival Monday and Tuesday. And if they have to take a loan from wherever it may be, in order to, as I said, that advertisement from the bank, you could pay with your credit card and you could pay in installments, either a 3-month period, a 6-month period, or a 12-month period for your Carnival costume. That's what they're advertising now. It's going to have people doing that. So I'm just saying, be sensible and wise with your money. And also, please be alert because, as you know, Christmas into Carnival, it's also a heavy crime period.
But Keaton, here's the unfortunate reality of life. As long as people are willing to pay, the price is probably too low. The price is only when you reach the point where you have just enough customers. This is all theoretical, by the way. When you have just enough customers to how much that you're willing to manufacture, that is the perfect balance point if you ever did economics in secondary school, where the two lines, demand and supply, meet, right?
Yeah,
it's hard to get there.
It's basic supply and demand theory.
Right. It's hard to get there. But the point is, people are still buying the costumes. Just like food. They're saying, you know, oh God, the price of food so high. KFC got up again. Although KFC didn't publish it this time, apparently. But you know what? When I was at the airport, the biggest line was at KFC. The biggest line was at KFC again, because PR KFC always has a line, right? Free publicity to KFC. Moving on. The thing is, they will still buy the well, in Tobago, my brother pointed out that there was a situation where people, well, they weren't buying the tomatoes anymore in some cases. Maybe food prices might reach the point where people might stop buying. We're seeing produce on shelves and people are looking at the price and saying, no mas. But with Carnival costumes, I don't know what it is that's worth the $10,000 directly. I never did it myself. I will say this, though. We do have to realize that, for better or worse, there's only Carnival once a year. And maybe with the culture of having more fets, Carnival fets-like fets throughout the year, Juve in July and so forth, it might cheapen the uniqueness of our carnival. But as it stands, it's only once a year, which means that in your lifetime, think about how few opportunities you would have for carnival. And then I could kind of understand the premium that some people will put on it to say, hey, I want to play carnival. I will spend $10,000 for a costume alone. That doesn't include all the other costs that I might incur around that, as well as all the fets I might want to go to before that. So I get it. I understand. People put a premium on it. It is what it is. Is it the best thing in the world? Do I agree with it? I don't know. I mean, it is their money. I just do hope people will be responsible. Those that can't actually afford it will not, overextend themselves to try to live up to a culture that is not necessary to their survival.
We have to go to a break here now, and we're not to the phone lines, but I made a little bit of a popsy. I said it's not theoretical, it's basic supply and demand theory. I
didn't hear that part.
There is a supply and demand theory, but it more so it's realistic, ladies and gentlemen. It's a theory that's applicable to everyday life and living, and quite frankly, maybe I should stop talking now before I dig myself in a deeper pool. We'll be right back after this.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Diego Martin man dies in accident. 3 charged for attempted murder of relative. New president to be elected in January. And internationally, deadly blizzard leaves more than 60 dead across the U.S. Now for the details. A Diego Martin man has died in a road traffic accident at the UE Lights intersection. Reports say that Andy Allane's Jaguar sports car collided into the concrete at the UE St. Augustine traffic lights on Tuesday morning. Both doors were ripped from the vehicle along with the front fender. The man died at the scene. 2 female passengers survived the accident. 4 persons, including a teenager charged with attempted murder, received bail after appearing virtually at an emergency hearing on Tuesday. 66-year-old DK Ragbar Singh, 35-year-old Sasha Ragbar Singh, and a 17-year-old female relative were charged with attempted murder. They were not called upon to plea and received bail in the sum of $200,000 with a surety. According to a police report, around 11:45 p.m. on December 19th, 2 female relatives allegedly had a verbal altercation that became physical. A teenage female relative, along with a 41-year-old male relative, allegedly armed with cutlasses, walked over to where the women were and allegedly began attacking one of them, which resulted in the woman receiving several chops about her body. During the incident, a 66-year-old male relative also allegedly started attacking the woman. An ambulance was called and she was taken to the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex. Trinidad and Tobago will see a new president elected in January 2023. A notice published by the Gazette dated December 23rd stated that in accordance with Section 26 of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, it is hereby announced that an election for the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago shall be held on Friday, 20th January 2023. This would mean that current President Paula May Weeks would serve until such time. In international news now, the death toll in the New York city of Buffalo has risen to 28, with thousands still without power amid a monster winter storm that has battered North America. Across the U.S., at least 62 people have died in weather-related incidents. In Buffalo, a state official said that military police are being brought in to help manage traffic in the city where a driving ban remains in place. Looting has been reported in parts of the city during the emergency. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Inspire, motivate, encourage, hope. It's about topical issues. It's about everything that you would want to know about hope, about life. At the end, you're going to say, yes, if he can do it, I can do it too. If she can, I can do it too.
No matter what they say, living in victory every day.
Nicole Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WSN Content Capital. Ladies and gentlemen, let's open up the phone lines now where you, the viewer, will have the opportunity to express your opinion with us. As it relates to the conversation that Sean and I had this morning, now we dived into many topics, starting off with the continued breakdown in society and how the family structure and the family home could have an impact upon that. We spoke about the economy from the aspect of what the Minister of Finance suggested in his Christmas Day message, a 45-second video posted to Twitter, as well as the Mother of All Carnivals, which is going to cost us TT $147 million, though the request from the entity was $200 million. Now, a lot to talk about, and some of the things that Sean and I didn't get the opportunity to touch on. If you would like to discuss that, so we have no problem with that. We just ask you to call in now rather than later, as it will it'll prevent us really from having to cut you given time and time management. So we have a caller on the line with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Morning, gentlemen. Season's greetings.
Morning.
Yes, I like that live. I like that live song in Tobago, Sean. You know, the first thing Sean touched on was the accident. And, you know, we in Trinidad and Tobago, we really lawless. I asked my wife to take me to pick up a vehicle in Chabonas. I was on Thursday. And the driving that I saw on the highway.
Yes.
And the thing is, sometimes people get drawn in because we were going up the road, and then she started to move through the traffic just like everybody else. And I had to ask her, you late for something? Because sometimes, I don't know if it's we just get sucked into this thing. And remember, we have a speed limit of 100 kilometers on the highway, which when it was introduced, everybody started to follow the rules because the police was there, and we had those radars and stuff.
Yes.
Those things have disappeared from on the highway now, and we are back to normal. Drive how you want, be reckless, run up the shoulder. That is continuing. something is wrong in this society, you know. That's the first point I have to say. The second thing is, it touched on the GDP, and the minister talking about giving back as much as they could to the people. That is a preemptive strike, Sean. That is on the back of the fact that on the 1st of January next year, 2023, we're going to have our, as far as the income tax regime goes, the first $7,500 will be tax-free. Right? So that the $7,500 a month, so which is anybody working for under that would pay no tax. However, we have the RIC looking for a rate increase in tea and tech, and I am not seeing any decline in inflation, in the supply side inflation. So that's a preemptive strike to the city. We're trying to give you back, you know, but that coming. So I don't think it's going to be as good, you know. I think it's going to be worse than 2022. You know, that's my opinion on that, gentlemen. Have a good day.
I cannot say I disagree with you, Kola. San Fernando, it's a good point, because I think you're right. Also, property taxes on your horizon as well. So we don't have to watch out for that. I will say this though, with regards to the TTPS and the radar guns and the speed traps and the traffic enforcement, with all of these things being asked upon them, I do wonder if this is what the result, that certain other things had to fall by the wayside. I could be wrong.
I'll respond to that after this call from Miaro. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, my brothers.
Good morning.
This is your farmer speaking. I feel very comfortable today to see that we reach another period in our life. And I just want to say something. WESN is the station that is sending the signal for us to critically think and understand. If people want to be entertained, we could go to other stations. If you want reality to face what is ahead of us, the objective, look at WSN. Keaton and Shah, I must say, it's a great day to have a good day with you guys. Now, I'm going to put on my tall boots, my farmer's boots a little bit. I put on the boots, I have no workers. I put on the boots, I need help to support agriculture. The farmers that support NAMGEFO, registered farmers, we have 10 million, 40 million, 100 million. Which part is going and who is going to? We want a jump start to keep the economy going, because we can't buy pumpkin for that price. We can't sell say for $15 and $10 for a little piece, a shoot. I mean, come on, gentlemen. You guys have been highlighting these things, and Keaton, I want to commend you. Your research and your highlighting topics are well within the lines of Trinidad and Tobago. And I want people to understand that you are a very balanced program. Keaton, you sometimes bite the bullet real hard, and as Coleman, hold my head and squeeze it, right? I want to say, in Tobago, they're squeezing too. But we have to unite. And I asking you guys to look into the matter and see where does these extra fundings go, if it goes to the relevant farmers, or if it really going to agencies that is deemed to be processing food or outlets for investment. Because our farmers, I attract a pack of home, can't do nothing. Because I need support. I lost it up 4 times. 4 times. I have nothing else to go. Help me. And you guys have been pleading with the farmers and for the association to help. Well, here what? They are registered farmers. Look at the registered list who support the food program, and you will identify who are the real farmers in this country. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you very much, caller. I think we'll be having a meeting with our directors soon, and I think what we're going to try to do, I can't promise it, I think we're going to try and come meet some of you guys, especially you out there, MARO. I know that's also, there was a caller from Tobago who said he needed a program dedicated solely to the people of Tobago so that they can speak on the situation out there, because that continues to evolve on a daily basis. So thank you very much, caller from MARO, for bringing that to us, and thank you for your support. And in whatever way we can, we hear you, and we will try to support you. So as soon as we have that meeting, we will know what avenue we can take in order to try and bring and shed more light on this issue. As per the caller from San Fernando and his second point, well, his first point actually in relation to RT, yes, sometimes we do get sucked into it, and I disagree with police having to be there all the time in order to for us to do the right thing. We know that the speed limit is 100 k's. Why is it that we need a police behind us all the time? My issue is that there's no consistency with respect to the police, because you should be having the police radars and these. By the way, they're very smart in where they do it. Sometimes they hide with police radars, but you should have that more often. But the police doesn't need to be there all the time. We know what is right. We know that a red light means stop. Doesn't mean continue to go until cars start to drive again. We know that a yellow light means to slow down. It doesn't mean speed up. And these are the things. You're not supposed to drive on the shoulder. And yesterday, people were driving on the shoulder like crazy. What's the rule? Keep left except when overtaking. Do we even still know that rule exists? That actually, when you go to do your regulations, simple little things like that. And the worst, don't get caught up in this, because I could understand people getting frustrated, angry, and scared. See, when you're driving on the highway on a main road, and a car decides to pull up right, literally, they're kissing your bumper, and you could see them in your wing mirror, you continue to drive within the speed limits. When they get an opportunity, let them take over, but never ever go over that 100. Don't be sucked in to arrogant drivers such as that. I mean, you have to drive for the other drivers out on the road, as my great-grandfather once said. Call on the line with us from Shipowners. Good morning, caller.
Good day, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good day.
Good morning.
Government is saying that people are not aware of what it's doing. Well, why don't they do their job? Because they have their stations. They could have a calling station for people could call and examine. And most of all, the annual administrative report is the main thing that government use. And they have not published any for the last 3 to 4 years. Then we talk about inflation from overseas with food prices. But then why do we subsidize foreign food that are not essential? And why don't we enforce our laws on land leased for agriculture so that this will bring down the cost of food? Oh, you make the thing that government need more than one term. Government don't need more than one term. The public service is supposed to be continuous. And if the government have a good policy, that would be incorporated in the public service. And if the new government come in, they want to change it, then they have to say their reasons and whatnot. So you don't need no more than one term. Any questions, gentlemen?
Professor, I would simply ask, how was your Christmas and how are you feeling? How are you keeping?
Well, I get it along.
That's good. That's good. I see, even though you're down and out, you still haven't lost your knack for things and your finesse for making excellent points.
Yeah, I enjoy living. Just mere living, I enjoy that. Not the things you do, but just being alive and getting along with other people and seeing what's going on and keeping abreast, sharing views and that sort of thing. That is my way of doing things.
And that's a mantra we should live by. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank
Good
you,
hearing
Professor.
from you.
The only thing with subsidizing foreign food is some of it might be like basic food staples. Maybe an argument could be made for that. For luxurious items, I don't know to what extent it's still subsidized. Most famously, certain things got increases, I believe, or like luxurious food items, there's still VAT on that and what have you. So, but the flip side is, yes, I do think that maybe we're using that too much of a crutch. We're leaning into foreign food supply too much. But it seems as though we're not necessarily learning the lesson of we need to have at least some degree of food security. You know, we don't have to have 100%, but can we at least have, I don't know, 50%, 60%? So if things go really bad, then we would have something to fall back on a basic level that we could at least survive or to help us survive. And I don't know if we properly have that. What if this cold weather, Keaton? Well, it's cold weather, hot weather in certain parts of North America. But I think you brought it up with regards to coffee in certain parts of the world, or grapes for wines. I can't remember which one. What if that affects food supply as well? You know, some place has a winter that they just weren't expecting, or a summer that's too cold, or a spring that's too cold. It ruins crops or whatever. And you know, it's the wheat shortage due to the Ukraine war all over again, but with something else. What are we gonna do then? I don't know.
I also think, Sean, you know, just being quite honest, as a man out there who's in my instance, at least, and for a lot of people that I know, even some of my colleagues, your dollar goes a long way now. Or should I put, you have to make your dollar go a long way now, because $1 is an extremely valuable thing for all of us now, for myself and my colleagues, just because of what we're facing and how we're living. And when you go to the grocery and you see the price of some of these items, pumpkin, as I mentioned earlier, is becoming a luxury item simply because of the price. I'm referring to this as a luxury item because of the price. And by that logic, tomato, pimento, chive, soon we will have to be seasoning our food like the British do and the Americans do with just salt and pepper.
Keaton, chicken is a luxury item now. Chicken.
Oh yeah.
So when the price of a small pack of chicken, maybe like a half a chicken, or even less, 2 thighs might be $40. And due to the Christmas season, and maybe it's seasonal as well, right? But the price of pork, because of all the hams that they want to get for Christmas, they have all of this extra pork from the other parts of the animal. You know, it's cheaper. I got maybe twice as much pork shoulder for $10 more than the cost of a small pack of chicken in a supermarket. And the grocery items, the prices are not exactly the same between Trinidad and Tobago. However, with regards to chicken, they very much are. It looks like you have to be rich now to afford chicken, which to me is crazy.
Sean, you can get an economy pack. One of my colleagues was telling me this. She was telling me that for her family, and I really feel sorry for her because she's facing a difficult time, sir. Being a mother, having 2 kids, it's not easy, and though she's married, still, given the times that we're in, what we're facing, it's really difficult. But she's telling me that the economy pack of chicken in the groceries is over $40. She purchases that because she can't afford anything else. But it's really the best end of bone. You know, it's really the best end of bone that she's having to cook. And that is what they're eating in order to survive. And all of these things, by the way, will have an impact on things such as malnutrition, nutrition on a whole, the standard of living, our expenditure in terms of hospitality. So as much as the Minister of Health is speaking about NCDs and lifestyle diseases, etc., all of these factors contribute towards that. And if we don't understand and realize it now, which is why people will quicker go for sugary substitutes because it fills you. Sugar tricks them into feeling that you are full, into feeling as though you are satisfied. That is what sugar does. And the side effects of that are terrible. I mean, that's coming from an individual here who's in love with chocolate, don't get me wrong. But the point is, at the end of the day, these sugary substitutes are what people are going to rely on more. Fast food is what people are going to rely on more. And I've said it before, alcoholism in Trinidad is a serious problem because people will quicker try to fill themselves up on a beer or half a bottle of rum, because not only do they feel full after that, they also have a high which is about too. All that is part of it. You know, so if we don't do something about it, we should have done something about this 20 years ago. Now we're facing the repercussions of such. Pumpkin is a luxurious food item, and so is chicken. I'll call on the line with us. Final call for the morning from
Sweet peppers are also a luxurious item, Kitam. Sweet peppers are way too expensive. Morning, Arima.
PNM, prosper no more. We have to rebrand the name of the party because this is what we're heading into in 2023. We will not be prospering anytime soon. Lack of talent, gentlemen. Well, it's showing up itself now. I tell you, I know farmers years on state land waiting on a lease. They can't get that. So when they get flooded out, they can't get no compensation. So when I listen to all the talk, how could a CPEP worker survive on that salary in today's inflationary spiral?
I wonder myself.
How we get to that from that?
Yeah.
And the Prime Minister with, I want to say far-right policies because it's a capitalist kind of thing. Who have money would gain and who have money have to remain suffering. Right now where we is here, it's 2 months and we ain't get tired. But our bill comes to pay.
Wow.
Season greeted when I gone.
Yeah.
Caller, I would just say this though, all of the government assistance and the grants and all of the wealth distribution, those aren't right-wing, those are left-wing policies. And one could argue that, at least if we follow the American model, corporate interests are in both sides of the equation. It's not a one-side only thing anymore. So I get what you're saying, but a lot of our social policies are very, very, very left-leaning, and I think maybe a bit too left-leaning.
Sure.
Yes, Keaton.
Sure. There were prime example of this was I go back to Venezuela again. It's not Nicolas Maduro, sorry, Hugo Chavez spent a lot of money on social expenditure, but he also took control of a lot of the private assets and made them into state assets, such as the oil company in Venezuela. I'm not going to go into too much details, but I understand where the call is coming from in the sense that whilst there are left-wing policies, such as what you've just mentioned as an example, that is there as a blanket and as some sense of a comfort, not only to create the dependency, but also to try and block the view of the right-wing policy.
Well, hold on, Keaton. Hold on. To some extent, the people want it that way. They asked for it, they demanded. That's what they voted in. So let's not just blame the government only.
If the people knew how to make a dollar, Sean, and they knew how to prosper, I'm pretty sure that Trinidad will be in a different place. But I hear your point. On the flip side of it, let's use the most basic example. I've spoken to individuals who are trying to establish businesses here in Trinidad and Tobago. Right? They want to invest their money. They can't establish a business here in Trinidad and Tobago.
It's too hard.
It's too difficult. You know, and that's how I understand where the call is coming from. Those who have money are the ones who will always prosper and the ones who will benefit. Those who are trying to make money and wanting to make money, it's exceedingly difficult. I'm very proud in Trinidad and Tobago now to know that we have local gin being produced. We have we've always had our local rum, but now that we have local wine, local gin, and local vodka being produced, I'm proud of that. I'm happy for that, and it's actually a damn good product. I think we also have sparkling wine, demi-sec, that is also being produced. But the thing is, those also, these are being produced by companies that are already established, who already have the licenses to do such. There are others who want to establish businesses to produce similar products and can't get through that. So this is what I'm saying. I understand where the call is coming from. I understand what he's saying. I think I don't think we are a left wing or a right wing state. I think we're more central.
Yeah. Well, I don't know
if center left, if anything.
I don't know if we could even say that we're center, because that implies that we follow an ideology. I just think the voters demanded something. The politicians were weak enough to give in. The voters, the problem is the population is not going to have enough information to always know what is best for them in the long run at that level. So it's a balancing act. You want to inform the population. You want to guide them. You don't necessarily want to force them to go with, hey, I am telling you this is the right way. You know, you don't want to force your ideology on them. But you do want to do your best to guide them, to inform them so that they could then make informed decisions. But that's not always the easiest thing to do. I just want to say, again, these sorts of projects, Venezuela's example of how, when you take it to the extreme, how bad it could get. And the ease of doing business. I had a clip from Margaret Wade. You know, she's an entrepreneur around the world that is pushing ease of doing business in Africa. That is something we need to solve if we want economic development, because the caller was right. CPEP and ERP is not meant to deal with these economic situations, and you could never increase the wages of the public sector to keep up with inflation. It's not going to happen at this rate because we're not rich enough to even try to do it anymore. But that is what the people are accustomed to, and that's what they're demanding.
I'm hearing our director say wrap up, so I'm going to do it on behalf of yourself and Aisha, I would essentially say that let me make my correction. We are more center-left. It's not centrist at all. I think more center-left. But anyway, as we conclude, John Michael Small, I really enjoyed your background this morning and the sounds of the birds and the water. You know, lucky you. I'm dealing with a whole set of Sahara dust down here. I think the whole of TNT is if we don't have snow, we have Sahara dust. But nevertheless, good seeing you, my friend. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you to all our callers for their contribution this morning. Excellent points raised by all of you, and to our directors in the box and to all our friends and colleagues at WSN. Hang in there, guys. We know it's difficult times. We know it's tough, but you all are doing well. Folks, as I end, I just say, you know, today is a good day to have a good day. Or at least you can make it a good day, because we can make it if we try. Sean and I will see you again, hopefully, tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.